My name is Hannah, and this is my beauty budget. Hey y'all, I am so excited about today's video. I just put together a little palette duping the vibes of the new release forthcoming from TATI Beauty. Now, I know what you are immediately going to be saying or thinking to yourself, which is, how can you dupe the vibes of something that hasn't released yet? We haven't even seen the full palette. We don't even have any reviews of it. We haven't seen live swatches. We haven't seen TATI talk about it on camera. Duping the vibes is really about getting the feeling or the experience that you yourself perceive that you might get from the item in question using what you already have. It's about realizing, admitting that when it comes to makeup and new releases, it's the idea of the thing that matters rather than the thing itself. And a lot of times the idea of the thing, we already own stuff that can replicate the idea of the thing or that can serve for the idea of the thing. And right now, this palette hasn't been revealed fully or released yet, and that means that the idea of the thing is exactly what's being sold. The idea of the thing is what's being marketed to us. What we know, what I know, is only the idea of the thing. I don't really know that much about the thing itself. So this to me is kind of an amazing opportunity to dupe the vibes, because what I've ended up with is the thing that I already own that is the idea of the thing that's being sold to me that I won't buy. Before we get started, before I kind of show you what I did and talk you through it, I want to say two things. First of all, I'm not doing this as a way of like putting down TATI or her release or saying that you should abstain from buying her palette because she's not worth your money. I'm not doing this in any way to disparage TATI. I am subscribed to TATI. I'm a little bit off and on with watching her videos because I tend to prioritize my small creators. I'm over here watching Amy, Samantha, Angelica, Teresa, Lacey before I'm ever watching TATI. Sometimes then I'll go on to watch one of her videos, especially if it's on a topic that I have an interest in. But I am subscribed to her. I am in that way a supporter of hers, and there's a lot about TATI that I really, really appreciate. I also think this release is stunning. It is so on point. It is so to my aesthetic. The fact that it's textured, that it's rich creative neutrals, but that it's texture oriented, to me is not only on trend, but on trend in my heart. It's a train that I'm on. I think it's gorgeous. I'm really happy for her, and I really respect what she's done. But I don't feel like I need to actually buy this palette for my respect and appreciation to be complete. And I don't feel like you do either. If you really want to, if you really want the palette and you will get a lot out of buying it and showing your appreciation that way, I'm not trying to hold you back. But I will say this, TATI is a millionaire. Just let that sink in. TATI is a millionaire. And she is going to have extraordinary success from this launch, whether you buy the palette or not. Whether I make this video or not. She's going to have the success that she deserves, the continued success that she deserves. And it is a true fact that I can support that and be happy about that, and also decide not to buy the palette, and also make a video about what I've done to get myself excited about the idea of this palette using what I already own. The second thing I want to say is that I duped the vibes of this palette using single eyeshadows. I know that not everyone has a huge single eyeshadow collection, and this isn't a how-to video. This is kind of like my second point. I'm not putting a video out that's called How to Dupe the Vibes of the TATI Beauty Texture Neutral, whatever it's called, palette. I'm just showing you guys what I did. And I also know that some of you might not be able to dupe the vibes even with what you have, even if it's not single eyeshadows, if that makes sense. It might be a situation where this palette is releasing and it's providing a ton of types of eyeshadows that you truly don't own. I know that not everyone can dupe the vibes in the way that I am. Again, it's just sort of like bringing you into my experience. That's what this video is about. And let's go ahead and get into the meat of that video. So all I have to go on for duping the vibes of this palette deliciously is TATI's Instagram, the website, and some of the images that came out in like on Trend Mood and in her release video, I pretty much just pulled up her Instagram page and have been using the few pictures that are on Instagram. I am filming this video on Saturday, October 19th, and I believe the release will be on the 25th. I'm not sure when I'm posting this video, but it's just a couple of days away, and it may be that more information about the palette has come out since then. But right now, as I'm filming this, the top video on the TATI Beauty Instagram is the one where she's got glitter smeared all over her décolletage, and she's going like this. So the main vibes, the main idea of the thing that made me want to dupe this palette is the fact that there are rows of variety of texture that correspond to a single color idea. So across this way we have the same textures, and down this way we have the same colors. And given that I have not an over large, but a rather extensive collection of single shadows, I was able to actually build a little palette that has the same number of eyeshadows that is in this palette and the same layout, even though it's not an exact dupe, it's a vibe dupe. And I built it into this Adept palette that Sandra from Adept Cosmetics just sent to me. I am so stunned by its quality, as I am with anything that I've ever gotten and tried from Adept. It's this beautiful matte marbled surface, and then I put the single eyeshadows from Adept that Sandra also sent into one side of it, and into the other side I built my Vibe Dupe Tati palette. So it's just cool because you can fold it like open like this, and I've actually, like, everything folds all the way back, so I've actually had it like sitting on my vanity a little bit elevated, if that makes sense. It's just a really cool palette. I'm really lucky to have it. So I'm going to throw up on the screen the picture of the palette that's in shadow. That is the only picture of the palette that has officially released so far. So we know that all the way on the left side, the row down the edge is of like a rich black, and across the top is glitters. You can actually see the words in shadow on this picture. So the four long rows, the four textures, the four finishes in this palette are labeled as glitter, metallic, sequin, and matte. We don't know what that means yet, right? We don't know what Tati's glitter formula is. Is it a pressed glitter? Is it an eyeshadow with a bunch of glitter in it? Is it a creamy glitter? Like, we just don't know that, but we do know that she has a texture that's called glitter, and I have decided what that means for me in my own palette. And I've done the same thing with metallic, sequin, and matte. Matte is easy. Glitter is pretty easy. It was pretty easy for me because I have some pressed glitters and I really love working with pressed glitters, so I was really happy to put pressed glitters in that row. And then when it comes to metallic and sequin, I kind of just went with the colors, and I tried to pick two shadows in the color scheme for each row that had different finishes. And I put some duochromes into the sequin row. I just picked eyeshadows that I like and that I like working with. So I'm going to go through my palette row by row from left to right and show you what I did. I'm not necessarily going to tell you the exact eyeshadows, all of the exact eyeshadows, because that doesn't really matter. And in fact, I didn't even check what the eyeshadows were when I was putting them in my palette. I was just going instinctively on texture and color. So the black row, the one that Tati has called that color row, or that color idea of memory, that was the hardest one for me because I don't have a black pressed glitter. I also don't have sort of black or gunmetal shimmers in this size of pan because I decided to make it extra hard on myself and not just to use singles, but to use singles that were all the same size. I do actually have some sequiny and metallic blacks and like gunmetals, but they're the wrong size. So I'm keeping this little palette with those three in it adjacent to this big palette, and if I feel I want to reach into that sort of deep glittery side, I'll have those. But what I decided to do with this row, instead of black, I did put the black matte. I decided to go a little bit mauve with it. I feel like she has some mauves in here, and looking at the arm swatches that she has released, there are definitely some sparkly mauves in there, neutral mauves, but there wasn't a place in any of my other rows where I felt like mauve elegantly fit. I think Tati has actually mixed mauve into this orange row, the middle row, but I wanted to lean more orange for that row because I love that orange idea. I actually kind of leaned into it a little with my eye look today. So I decided to put the mauve that I know has a presence in this palette in the black row, and then to have these like extra blacks on the side. So I used sort of a rich mauve pressed glitter, and then I went with sort of a rich duochrome mixed sequiny mauve that actually does swatch and perform very, very dark. This is actually much darker than it looks, so it works in this smoky dark row, and then sort of a lighter, more glimmery mauve. The second row in Tati's palette is very clearly lit in this picture. It's the one called Ritual, and the matte is definitely just sort of like a warm, deep brown. So I put a warm, deep brown at the bottom of that row, and then I decided to build pretty much a bronzy, sort of a dirty bronzy row on top of that. This is a row in which it does look like Tati has leaned a little bit mauve in hers. I leaned a little bit more sort of silvery gold brown in mine, and I absolutely love that row. I think it came out so, so pretty. So now we get to another row that is very clearly visible, and again, I feel like she put sort of a rich orange matte at the bottom, and then a matte with glitters second up. That's in the sequin row. I think that that's what it is, sort of a maybe a slightly satiny matte with glitters. I have pretty good dupes for those two. But again, I kept a little more of an orange feeling in my top two, in my glitter and in my metallic, than it looks like she has in this picture, although this picture is highly photoshopped, the one that she has, so you never really know. But for me, I really love the way that this row came out, and I did use actually a good bit of that orange glitter on my eye look today. I'll do a close-up of my eye look after I finish talking about my palette, and I'll tell you everything that I used. So now we're moving into Shadowland in terms of this palette, and it's really interesting because I find myself having to sort of complete the idea of the palette without seeing it. So we're really, really pushing on this thought of conceiving of the palette that she has sort of been suggesting or been teasing, and building it for myself in my own image, which ultimately is going to be better for me, right? Because these are singles that I already own, that I already picked, and I was able to lean into my preferences for these rows instead of necessarily trying to exactly match what she's done. But I do have some, I think, pretty good guesses at what the rest of this palette looks like. So in this shadowed picture, you can kind of see that third shadow down. To me, it looks a little bit mustardy. And I might be totally wrong on this, but it just does. It just looks a little bit mustardy to me. And the second one down looks like a champagne. So I decided to run with that. I probably leaned a little greener than I think Tati did. I don't think there are any green undertones in this palette, but I leaned into that a tiny bit. So I have this beautiful pressed glitter. I'm gonna try to get a really good close-up on this row. I don't know how well you can see it, but I really love that pressed glitter at the top. That's ColourPop Get Lost. And it is sort of a champagne-y, but it definitely has some like greeny reflects. And then I went with sort of a mustardy matte and a little bit of greeny metallics. They're definitely still neutrals. I feel like they really suit the palette, but it's a row of grungy and a little bit mustardy neutrals that I am really excited to have in my palette. And I did lean into the idea of this a tiny bit today. I felt like it helped the eye look that I put on have some dimension. So I really love that row. I probably love it more than I'm gonna love whatever gets revealed from the palette that I'm seeing here. So the last two rows are completely obscured in this picture, and what I did was I looked at the picture of what's on her arm in another image that's on Instagram, and I looked to see if there's anything that's there on her arm that I don't see in the palette that has been revealed, like the part of the palette that has been revealed, and reverse engineering from that, I'm hypothesizing that there's going to be sort of a burgundy inspired row, a burgundy matte, and a row that's built off of it, and there's going to be like a cream or white inspired row, probably like a cream sort of, you know, brow bone color for a white person row. So I did that. I built a burgundy and sort of a creamy white row, It didn't have a glitter to go at the top of the burgundy row, although I'm remembering now that I have a teeny tiny palette that has 2 eyeshadows in it. One of them is a pressed glitter, so I could theoretically have glitters all across the top. I think I do own 6. When I find that, I might switch it out. But for now, I just went with a really interesting sort of glimmery duochrome, glittery glimmery duochrome at the top of this row that I feel like is sort of special enough to count as the glitter for this burgundy row. And the rest is pretty straightforward. It's 2 metallic shadows that are slightly different finishes and slightly different colors, and then a good strong burgundy matte at the bottom. And then this row was also really easy. A white iridescent pressed glitter, a shimmery white to gold duochrome, a slightly pinky metallic. They could probably be switched because the pink one is the metallic and the duochrome is the more interesting one, but I like how it goes from white to cream, sort of pinky cream. And then I have a nice strong kind of, again, yeah, base pinky cream down here in the corner. All right, I'm gonna do a quick close-up of this eye look. This is the part where I made the eye look after building this palette is the part I really love. And it's really what spurred me to definitely want to film this video, because this is just an eye look that I wouldn't have done. And it's beautiful, and it's very me, and it's very Halloween-y, and it's very this. You know how a lot of times people talk about how the reason that they like buying a pre-made palette or having a palette instead of having singles is that it leads you to eye looks that you wouldn't have otherwise done, and you open the palette and you're like inspired by the color story to build certain eye looks. That's why palettes are so popular. That's why palettes are so coveted, and that's why people get so excited about them, even though we often have the same colors over and over again. They're just arranged differently. People get so excited about palettes because they do for us what this palette that I made myself did for me today, which is that when I sat down and I started building a look from it, I was inspired. It took me in a different direction than I would probably have gone with my eyeshadow. Not even probably, surely. It surely took me in another direction than I would have gone with my eyeshadow today if I hadn't done this project today. So I'm going to show you the look because I really love it. I'm really proud of it, and it's totally the end result of this project in this video. So I built the look around the metallic shadow that I have, one of the metallic shadows that I have in the burgundy row. So it's sort of an orangey, burgundy, rusty metallic, and I pretty much put that all over my lid and smudged it out under my lash line. Then I tapped orange glitter and a little bit of the darker sort of rose gold glitter over it, and then I went back in and I tapped some of that metallic shadow over the glitter to deepen it and darken it. I like layered shadow over glitter so that the glitter wouldn't beam so lightly but just have like some texture and shimmer. I went in with a lighter glitter on my inner corner, and then I went in with sort of a smudgy dark blackened mauve on the outer corner to give it a dark smoky look but without it getting too black. And I also used a little bit of sort of an off cream metallic on the brow bone. Which one was it? Okay, so it was actually ColourPop Now in Zen, which is a metallic white with a gold flip. It's sort of a subtle duochrome. So that gold flip mixed a little bit with the darker colors and turned it almost like a swampy pale green on the brow bone, and that was when I felt the look really come alive. That was when I was like, am I Natasha Denona or am I Hannah Louise Poston? Nobody will know the difference, because I feel like there's something about that swampy goldy white flip on the brow bone that complements the eye look really well. The thing that really satisfies me, the thing that really makes me feel excited once again about the idea of duping the vibes, which is something that I came up with like over a year ago. I mean, it was during my no-buy year. I think the first time I duped the vibes was when I duped the vibes of the first Norvina palette, the purple one. So it was on that release that I first filmed a video talking about the idea of not needing to have an exact dupe, but being able to dupe what that palette would do for you if you owned it. So the thing that really satisfies me about it is when I look at this look and when I look at this palette and I look at it on my vanity and I think about its possibilities. And then I look at the Tati Beauty Instagram feed. This butterfly, this monarch butterfly with like the sparkly crystal wings, the black and the sort of scummy mustard, and then the gold and the white glitter. Look at these textured glitter shadows with chunks out of them, and it's like sort of a reddish glitter and sort of an orange glitter and sort of a grayish glitter. And then I look at the swatches on Tati's arm, and I look at just the general aesthetic, the kind of darkness and richness and the glittery glamour fall neutral vibes. I look at that and it matches what's on my face right now. I look like I could be, I mean, I don't really look like I, Hannah Louise Poston at this moment could be, but in theory, this eye look is one that could be in a piece of advertising for this palette, could fit in with the aesthetic. I have bought what they are selling from my own collection, spending only time rather than having to spend any money. On top of that, my palette has been enhanced for me above whatever this palette's going to offer. I've minimized the pinks. I feel like there are a number of sort of pinky mauves. There's a little bit of a pink side to this palette, sort of like a champagne pink metallic shadow that even in the very limited picture that we have looks like it's repeated a little bit. I've minimized that in my palette. I've grunged it out a little bit. I've added this slightly grungier mustard row that has a bit of a green shift to it. Even not having seen this palette, not having seen it in person, not having seen the full reveal of it, even in that situation, I feel pretty confident that this is better for me. The one thing that this palette promises that I don't own, that I literally don't own, and that I can't dupe out because it's so specific, is a black glitter eyeshadow, like a black pressed glitter. I don't have that. I'm not exactly sure if it's pressed glitters, again, that she has in her palette, but that black pressed glitter, the glitter that's in the memory row, I don't have something that stands in for that. And even these shadows that are more of like the sequin or metallic ones, they kind of would, if they were the right size, they would be in the second and the third place in that row. But that top left-hand corner, that black glitter, that's something that I don't have. But the fact that when I duped out the vibes and the idea of the rows and the columns and the textures and the colors, the fact that when I did that, I found out that there's only one thing in this palette that would add something unique to my collection, and that even if I then had the palette, apart from that one shade, this one would suit me better because it's more me. That just makes it seem even more ridiculous to think about buying this palette, because I would essentially just be buying it for that one shade. And I know that I can seek a black pressed glitter elsewhere and pay what would probably be a lot less money for that if I was so desperate to complete the idea in this palette. I was already on the hunt for something like that. And so buying this palette isn't the ideal solution, because I'd be buying a whole palette just for one thing I've been looking for. However, when I first saw the reveal of this palette, that aspect of it was what made me the most excited, because that's something that I've been looking for. So by going through the process of duping the vibes for myself, I have kind of unlatched those two ideas from each other and made me realize that that excitement is kind of connected to other things and doesn't necessarily need to stay attached to this palette. So that is it. This was such a fun project. I'm really, really inspired by the idea of texture in the rows and color in the columns. I think that that's wonderful, and I'm really excited that Tati has brought that to the makeup world. I'm so curious about how this launch is going to go. I'm really curious about the reviews. I'm curious about what the rest of the palette will look like, and I'm excited to see what Tati goes on to release in the future. The fact that I did this instead of buying this palette doesn't mean that I'll never buy something from Tati Beauty, or that I'll never buy this palette for that matter. I mean, who knows what will happen in the future. I just know that right now, I'm not planning to buy this palette when it launches. I'm not planning to buy it this year. And I feel like I have a new palette, an amazing new palette right here in my hands already. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you are doing anything like this currently in your collection, either with this palette or other palettes that have been tempting you. And I would love to just chat a little bit down below about the idea of making sure that we refocus our energies on the idea of the thing and what we already have that fulfills that idea, rather than always being so obsessed with the next new thing itself. Thank you again, and I hope that you are remembering to take extra good care of yourself this week so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.